Okay. Okay. We are set, I believe.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, February 9th. This is a Charter Revision Group 2 meeting, all on Zoom. The primary reason for this meeting is going to be discussing Article 5 in the Town Charter, which is on the Board of Finance, financial procedures, taxes, and if we have time, we might talk a little bit about the Audit Committee among the members of the Charter Revision Commission. I'm going to do a roll call with Group 2, and that's myself, Kathleen Corbett. Jennifer Holm is here, and we're waiting for two other members, but we're going to get started. Other members of the Charter Revision Commission include Steve Case and Chris Labrise. And we've got a number of Tucker Murphy is on Zoom. Oh, and here's Commissioner Bill Perrette from the Charter Revision Commission Group 2 has also joined us. Also from Board of Finance is Alan Bedaines, and we're expecting several others who had reached out to me last night, and we'll welcome them in when they join us. Okay, let's get started then. So, Alan, you and Chris actually can begin. I'm going to start off by just referencing in the town charter Article 5, and we'll start off. And I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at it. We have Maria Weingarten joining, Nick Matrakis. I should have waited 1 minute, Jennifer. Right now we're getting everyone. Maria Weingarten, welcome.
Good
And Nick,
morning.
yes, welcome. Thank you. And who's Zoom user? Could you identify yourself on the Zoom?
I think that's probably me, Kathleen, Bill Perrette.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. Okay,
Yeah, I
forget.
think that is me. I'll change my name.
No,
Sorry.
that's okay. That's okay. Thank you. Okay, let's get started. We're starting with Article 5 in the town charter. Has everyone have it in front of them, or would you like me to share my screen? I'll, everyone's talking at the same time. I'll share the screen, or okay. So we'll just go quickly through each of the elements of the chapter. I can pause if anybody has a comment or a question on any of these. I'm going to put you guys on the side here so I can see if there's any. And then Jennifer, keep me honest here. If you see anybody raising their hand, just give me a shout out.
Will do.
Thank you. Okay, so the first article first section of Article 5 is the composition of the Board of Finance. I presume there's no suggested changes here unless anybody wants to make a comment. And that is that there are 8 regular meeting members and 3 alternate members. This 10 years ago, we had suggested that this word taxpayers here, that the Board of Finance members should be both electors and taxpayers, i.e. own property of the town. That was put before the electorate to suggest that taxpayers come out. This being the only board in the charter that actually requires members to be taxpayers, own property in the town. And the electorate voted that down. They wanted this section to keep that the members be taxpayers. And other than that, there was no other change from 10 years ago. Was there any other comments or questions on this section?
Kathleen, it's Nick.
Yes,
So
Nick.
just curious, the composition of the Board of Finance, does it depend on um political party, majority, minority? Does it matter political party at all?
Well, with the last line here, as all other boards and commissions say, there shall be minority representation, and that's as defined under section 9-1. 7A, the general statutes. So no one party in the case of, and it's for both the board and the alternates. So no one party with 8 members shall be greater than 5 in this board. So no one, it doesn't say that it has to be 5 Republicans, doesn't say that has to be 5 Democrats. It's that no one political party can exceed the number 5. And the same would be true for the alternates. No one political party can exceed 2 in
Okay.
3 alternates.
So that ratio is applied separately to the 8 and to the 3, not
Yeah,
the 11.
yes, on that sentence, that last sentence, it says both on the board and on the panel of alternates.
Okay.
Is that how it exists now? I honestly, I don't know what the distribution is.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, moving to section 2. And this is also pretty straightforward. There were the additions from 10 years ago was to add the confirmation by an affirmative vote of 7 members of the town council. So this is annually, they're appointing, the selectmen annually appoint after election, subject to 7 members, 2 members of the Board of Finance. So this is a staggered appointment. And the term, as stated here, I just want to make sure I can see it, is for 4 years. Does anybody have any comments on the 4-year term? The alternates are serving for 2-year terms. And then I'm going to ask the question for anyone here, how do you feel about term limits? There are no term limits under this section. Does anybody have a thought?
You know, on term limits, Kathleen, take Todd Labieri, who's been there, I think, 10 years in the role. And in municipal type offices like this or bodies, the experience he has from all the years learning the different scenarios and what works and doesn't work, I think is very, very valuable. I've been on the board 2 years. You learn every year, and we still learn every year. And to have a term limit, let's say only 4 years, and then the next 4 years somebody else joins because the term limit eliminates that person from serving again, you would sort of have to start over again. So you need to have that experience on the board. And I'm sure there's mechanism to remove somebody if there is some problem. But from a term limit perspective, on the Board of Finance specifically, I think the more experience somebody has, the better for the town.
How do you feel about term limits in general for appointed boards? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Maria? Start calling on people.
No, I mean, I would have to agree with Nick and his comments related to the Board of Finance, and I can see the same being true for something like planning and zoning as well, where it's highly technical. You need certain skill set for some of these positions, and I think that knowledge is invaluable for the committees and for the town.
And so I'll just one last time I'll say, if it was 4 terms, not to exceed 4 terms, and then there's also the ability, if you roll off, you can go back on, but 3 or 4 consecutive terms, still feel comfortable with saying no term limits? Alan, you haven't offered your thoughts. You're the newest member.
I mean, I hear the arguments that Nick and Maria have made. If you're saying 4 times 4, 16 years,
Hypothetically,
I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, it's a long time, and maybe there's an argument that other people in town should have the opportunity to serve.
okay.
I don't know if anybody knows how long Laszlo Pop served on the Planning and Zoning Committee, but I think it was longer even than that.
It-
And
was.
I think he really truly was a elder statesman of our community on those boards and did an amazing job. So I don't know. I'm sort of torn on that one. I think that it's the skills that they bring and the knowledge that they have can be very valuable for our community.
You're right, Maria. I also know that Laszlo actually served in the 1970s and then rolled off. And I see Steve's raising his hand, but then rolled off and then was reappointed after a period of time where he was no longer serving. And that's what we're seeing on other towns, boards and commissions that do have term limits, that it could be as short as 1 year in terms of once you complete your term limit, you either roll off 1 year or one full term. Steve Case is raising his hand.
Yes, this is Steve. One of the other commissions that I'm working on has a term limit for the chair role. I wanted to get the comments on that type of idea as opposed to term limits for the individual board members.
Are you referring to the audit committee?
Actually, I was referring to the Board of Education, but I don't know the each individual committees.
Well, I'll take the audit committee first. So the audit committee is the only appointed board and commission in the charter that actually has a term limit.
Yeah.
And that's 3 terms. And that was introduced 10 years ago at the last charter revision. So it was a new committee. The town council voted that it should have term limits. We were sort of under exploration at that time as to how that should work. We struggled a little bit with that, but I think it's working now. And so that's the only one that currently has a limit. You can roll off, and I think it's for one term. In fact, it's in the body of this article. But what Steve is referring to is that's when the chair in the Board of Education has a 2-year term limit. Is that right, Steve? Yeah. And we don't reference that at all in Article 5. In fact, I don't think it's a clause in any other board or commission other than the Board of Education. And Steve, if I'm not mistaken, that's part of their bylaws too. It's not just the charter. Is that right?
That is their bylaws, not
That
the
is the bylaws.
charters.
Okay. All right. So
mean,
again,
I could just comment on that. The Board of Ed role is as a chair is a very time consuming, and even the time of day when they have to provide their services. So I think that sort of limits who can be your chair. So I think sometimes it can be challenging to find someone who's willing to be chair in those roles. And I think that there was a time where they extended the amount of terms one could serve. So I think it's as needed, I think, but again, that's their roles internally as well. So
that's right. If they choose to change it, it'd be out of their bylaws.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else on term limits or term of office of the chair? Okay, let's move on then. So officers and organizations, so the 8 regular members. This is the addition of the first selectman as ex officio. As you know, it was at one time was the chair of the board. That was also changed pursuant to the electorate 10 years ago. Any thoughts or comments on how it currently exists in the charter, section 5-3?
I think it's very valuable to have the first selectman on there. I mean, the insight they bring and the quality of input, and it really helps me at least on the issues that are going on in town.
Okay. It's obviously also working. You've already referenced the chair in terms of the engagement by the first selectman is ex officio, no votes. Have they ever had to break a tie? Maria, you've been the longest serving there.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm the longest
Oh, you're
serving.
the longest. I'm sorry, Chris. I didn't even see that.
But we haven't seen it. There's never been a situation where there was a tie break. That's because we have the alternates, we always have 7 members, so we always seat the right number of people.
You always have 8.
8, right.
Right, right. Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments on officers and organization? Oh,
No,
no. Okay, let's move on to powers and duties of the officers and the alternates. And let's see, I'm just seeing if there's any significant change from 10 years ago, other than that change to the chairman. There's none. Anybody have any comments or questions on section 5-4?
I'd be curious for the other people on the Board of Finance. I mean, in the 9 or so meetings I've been on, Todd is always there. But have there been, have you had to vote in a presiding chair?
Yes, there were some occasions when we first started. I think the first chair was John Sheffield, and then Todd came on in 17, and then he was the chairman henceforth. I think there was one meeting when Sheffield was the head that he couldn't make it, and so we voted in a pro tem chair. I think we voted in somebody who another long-serving guy to just chair that meeting.
And that's provided for in the charter here in terms of the vote. I did ask Todd when he last spoke to our group whether or not a vice chair would be appropriate here, and he said, well, he'd consider it. But I think the language in the charter is sufficient to, if there was ever a situation where the chair could not be present, you just vote in the pro tem chair. And I think that's, personally, I think that's sufficient, but open to your thoughts.
I would
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, okay. And I think that is a consistent through, with the exception of the town council, which does have vice chairs. All the other boards and commissions just have you vote in the chair if the nominated chair is not there. Okay, anybody else? All right, moving to the quorum. As the quorum is 5 members. And we used to say exclusive of the chairman. That was taken out. Any comments or questions there? I think that's pretty easy. Okay, request for annual appropriations. Now it gets perhaps more interesting. So as you'll note here, here we go. You're in the process right now of where the request for annual appropriations is ongoing. This just states that all the officers, department heads, boards, commissions of the town shall annually, and then there's some dates there that are subject to when the reporting requirement is laid out, and in a form prescribed by the Board of Finance. And just interesting in that particular statement where it says itemized estimates of the respective requests for appropriate. Is this a form that you, the Board of Finance, actually design in terms of how the departments and other boards approach the Board of Finance in terms of the budget process? Is that consistent with your understanding?
We have not. It's not our form. The departments submit budgets that require them to have details of operating expenses, any revenue that they might generate in their department, and then a capital program. So it's a format that's over the years been accepted. It's in the budget books. It's not codified, but it's just the way that it has evolved. It's been the same for years.
Right.
And the information that is provided is the same for years. And it's the same from department to department.
I presume if you wanted it changed, the Board of Finance could direct it so.
Well, if there was something glaringly missing, I suppose we could, but one of the things that over the years, however, what we have done is when special appropriations or capital requests come, we have tightened that up considerably over the years and asked for more detailed information when it's submitted. But those are one-off ad hoc kind of presentations. So there's no format there, but but we have drilled down. We've sent people home, do some more homework, come back with new plans, fill in blanks, that sort of thing. But in the actual budget process, that is well established procedures.
So I guess both on that 5-6 and 5-7, which is the capital expenditure request, I would say that the form is the language of the Board of Finance prescribes the form in which that information is received, and I don't think that requires a change. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Everybody else? Okay, great. All right. Any other comments on 6-8, which is the capital expenditures? None? Okay. Great. Let's move on to pension and retirement systems and insurance. And I'm just double checking. There was just a reference 10 years ago adding employees had the employees of New Canaan Library employed prior to January 1st, 2011. I wonder if there are still individuals on the pension plan that formerly worked at the library before 2011. I wonder if this is still appropriate 10 years later. We'll dig into that, and we'll see that this may just need some change if in fact
there may be employees who are no longer at the library but who are drawing pension.
Correct. That's what we're going to check.
So I think you have to keep it in there probably until there's no more of those.
Yeah, so we'll check that. We'll check. I think you're right. There may be still people in the pension.
Yeah, there's no need to remove that. It doesn't really hurt anything.
Yeah. We'll just double check that, but I agree with it. If there's somebody there, we're going to leave that in there. Anything else in terms of the description of pension and retirement systems? Not sure what retirement system is, but and then group insurance, and it says any existing system of retirement payments or pensions shall remain in effect until modified under the provisions of this section. Has there been any change in the retirement system that you may be aware of? No? Okay.
No.
It's just language I'm not as familiar with.
Kathleen, Bill, just a question. Is there a separate pension committee or board that overviews changes or modifications? Typically, if you have a lot of employees, which we do, there's always some anomaly that comes up that needs to be approved. And I'm trying to figure out whether it's the finance committee that approves it or there's some other body.
It's a subcommittee. Anybody want to talk about that? Is anybody?
There are two subcommittees. One is the pension committee, which is made up of a representative for the Board of Finance, the first selectman, representatives of some of the town unions, and that group basically reviews pension applications on an individual basis. People retire, people pass away, successor beneficiaries are come up, and so those are approval. It's just it is really an administrative committee. Once in a while, there have been questions about the appropriateness of a individual pension, and those are reviewed. They, sometimes sometimes they're very highly personal matters. So it was, but it's very rare. Most of it is fairly routine application. The other committee is the Retirement Pension Advisory Committee, the RPAC. That is responsible for managing the money and hiring the asset managers, the record keepers, and so on.
Neither of those are referenced in the
No,
chart.
neither one of them are referenced in the charter.
Yeah. Yeah. Are these the pensions? Well, actually, the pension subcommittee may be under the personnel section. I'll double check that. Retirement PAC, I don't think is there, and that is a subcommittee of the Board of Finance. Is that change over time? Are members appointed to that? How does that work?
Yes, members of the Board of Finance are appointed.
When the subcommittee approves something, does that come back to the entire finance committee?
Yes, the subcommittee has only advisory role, and everything that it does must be ratified and voted on by the complete board.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chris, perhaps we can work on a sentence or two that actually clarifies that and is embedded in 5-8. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it probably wouldn't hurt to outline both those subcommittees.
Let me just double check the.
I mean, they've been around for a while, so it's not like they change a lot.
Okay. And does the retirement PAC, does that have, is that also embodied? I don't know, how many members are there?
Right now there are 4. It's not always, there's been 3, there have been 5. It's not a set number.
And is minority representation followed in those?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, on the pension committee, it's not, because it's just one representative of the Board of Finance. So I was on it.
Yeah.
I was that person for many years. I'm now gone. It's Bob Hamill that is that representative.
Okay.
But there's only one guy, so.
Okay. Well, just in reference to group 2, we'll work on some language here that codifies those two. I think pension subcommittee actually does exist elsewhere. We'll come back to that, but retirement PAC, I think we should mention. And I just wanted to clarify is that the Board of Finance is recommending to the town council. Is that something that regularly happens then, Chris, or anybody else? Is there an annual procedure where the Board of Finance is actually recommending any changes to the pension plan?
Well,
Maybe.
because there aren't that many changes, but yes, if there were a change, it would have to go to the town council.
Okay. Okay, so the language.
But it doesn't change.
If there is a.
I mean, probably the last change is when they instituted the defined contribution plan, and that goes back a long time.
Yeah. Okay. If there was going to be a change in the managers, for if you went from one organization to another, is that something that requires approval by the town council?
I'm trying to remember because we just changed them about a year or 2 ago.
Right.
Tucker might remember if we had to submit that to the town council. I don't recall. I wasn't on the RPAC at the time.
Okay. Okay, we'll come back on that then. We'll further investigate. Let's move to 5.9. Let me just check my watch here. And this
Steve has a question.
Oh, Steve, go ahead.
Well, just a comment. I worked on the change that Vanguard was the advisor, and it's an OCIO role, and that went to Russell Investments, and it went to the pension committee, and if I remember right, it went to the Board of Selectmen. It didn't go to the town council.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just investigate that a little further. But thank you for clarifying that. Let's move to 5-9, Board of Finance budget recommendations and the public hearing. There were no changes. last time. Any comments or corrections there?
No, that's how it works.
Pretty straightforward. Okay. And then the annual budget meeting. And this is something that happens 11 weeks after the first Tuesday of February in each year. I'm never sure why they are that specific. I think that's general statutes, but it's, once you've got that all figured out, I think it's worked that way for as long as I've been around, 20 years. When I joined the Board of Finance. Any other comments or corrections on that annual budget meeting? Okay. I will say that the published once a week for two successive weeks, a notice of the meeting and so forth. Again, that's all pretty well prescribed. If the rules under publication under the Connecticut state statutes change, our charter will also, it doesn't have to wait until another 10 years before we change it. We'll just adopt whatever the Connecticut state statutes require. And right now, that publication of once a week for two consecutive weeks in a newspaper is what's required. Okay, moving on to 11, town council action upon annual appropriations and other recommendations. Any changes, comments, questions? So here is where it actually references that the town council, and we've had a discussion about this already, it may approve, disapprove, or reduce, but not increase. And kind of mixed responses. My fellow colleagues on the charter revision can comment on here, but most of it was agnostic. The responses that we did hear from the town council, that they whether or not their ability to approve or increase, recommendations from the Board of Finance, which then goes over to the town council. There are some towns that do permit increases in the budget, but not to exceed what the original appropriation request was. And any thoughts on that?
I would leave it as is.
Yeah.
I would say maybe there was one instance where maybe the Board of Finance didn't have enough information in time to define an amount. But I think we always have that opportunity to do a special appropriation down the road when needed. So I think as is seems to work.
I agree with that. I think the only time I recall, and I might have been on town council at that time, is that it was just bounced back to the Board of Finance for reconsideration. And then there, I don't know what they did, whether they just agreed or they kept it as is. But there was some iteration between the town council and the Board of Finance that worked itself out.
Kathleen, if I could ask a question of some of the finance committee members, I don't think I have a problem with the way it's written, but it is a little bit strange in the sense that the finance committee is all appointed and the town council is all elected. And, why is it necessary to restrict the town council since they are elected? I mean, why do you feel that?
Why do I feel it? Or you're asking the
why any of the committee members? I mean, everybody said we shouldn't change it. I'm just trying to understand why, why people feel that way. If the town council the way I would understand it, if the town council elected body felt that the budget in a particular area needed to go up, X amount. They don't have the power to do that, but they're elected officials. So it just they have to answer to the electorate. It's a little bit hard for me to understand. I understand how you would want to restrict the town council to making any changes, but why not increase it? I'm just not sure. I'm not sure I understand. How did this provision come in, or is this something? This is not Connecticut state statute, is it?
It can be changed in the charter. So, but it can be changed in the and as I just pointed out, there are several towns that do permit it.
Yeah.
Again, with a cap. but it's something that has been here since 1935, and I can go back. It's just something that has always been I can verify,
Yeah.
where, but I don't think it has anything to do the fact that the Board of Finance is appointed and the town council is elected. It's just that's the procedure where the Board of Finance is making the recommendation to the town council, which is the legislative body. I think I'd much rather refer to it as legislative body rather than whether they're elected or appointed.
I think it's a product of good conservative, small R Republican government. And you have a very disciplined process to produce a budget. You have a desire to provide the services the town demands, and yet you also have a responsibility to keep the taxes low. And if and so the selectmen start the process of the budget. They have to be a little more broad in their view because they're getting there. It's a bottom up budget process. So a lot of requests comes in, but they too exercise a certain degree of constraint. They will cut some things. They'll say, no, we're not going to support this. And then, so it's already gone through one sieve when it gets to the Board of Finance. Our role is to balance what is needed to run the town, how much debt we should have, what the tax rate ought to be, and reach a reasonable number. And once that is done, it goes for ratification to the town council. Town council could change that all that prior discipline that was there, and it's hard to do. You have to say no to people. When we send the budget over, there's been a lot of no's that have been said, and it would very much water down the effect of two rather rigorous screenings that the budget goes through if the last group that was there could whimsically change the whole thing. So I would be, that's one of the reasons I think it's there. It's just good old-fashioned small R Republican small town governance, and it works pretty well for our town.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
And I would agree with Kathleen in that if there are other communities where if the line item, if they decided to change some allocation, they would have to find it somewhere else within the budget for those very reasons, rather than increasing the overall request.
Right. Good. Thank you.
And I think that's actually, just as Maria mentioned, in the next section, 5-12, which is about special appropriations. And it just, as you read it, and this to that point, if there's a special appropriation that's required by the selectmen, this particular paragraph describes how it goes about where the opinion of the Board of Finance, and then they deliver the recommendation back to the selectmen. And that then goes to the town council. And again, it's somewhat of a process here, and there's a number of weeks and et cetera. And then if the monies do not exist in the town treasury, then there could be a special tax that's levied. The only thing that I could think about in terms of our past history on the special appropriation is during COVID, as I recall, when the Board of Education actually came to the Board of Finance. Maybe they went through the process, Board of Selectmen and then Board of Finance, but the process was that a request for a special appropriation, which did not require a special tax because we have a reserve. So I think the language works, but this is how the process should sort of play itself out. Any thoughts or comments on that?
Well, the COVID special appropriations is an excellent example of what happened in real time, very quickly. And it worked very well. Fortunately, this is a well-financed, well-governed town. The reserves were there, and it was an appropriate use of our reserves to make sure that our schools could stay open and function effectively. So that's a example number one of this thing working just the way it should.
And the way that it's described here under 512, Chris, is that, I mean, again, it's
Yeah, I mean that's what happened.
exactly how it did. Okay, good. Okay, it works. Okay, 13, bond issues. Everybody on the Board of Finance knows all about this. Can you just, any comments in terms of the process here that's described? And again, the bodies that are here are the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, and approval required by the town council. Also, the town treasurer and the town clerk are mentioned here, and also something referred to as the seal of the town, which we're talking about too, and under a different section. Lots of people involved in bond issues. I think this language covers it all. Any thoughts or comments? None? Okay, let's move to special improvements under 14. If there's a case where special taxes are levied to provide funds for special improvements, again, the process would be the Board of Finance would hold a public hearing, and it would be if that it required a special assessment, if there was a tax, again, not in my knowledge or recollection that this has ever occurred, but this provides for, and I'll give it maybe one example that sort of comes to mind when it was considered, if you ever needed something in terms of water, not purification, what's the word I'm thinking about, but something into, there's a big process in which zinc is taken out of the water.
Right, the zinc issue, Kathleen. Yeah, that
And
would have
very
been
expensive.
that would have been if the state had imposed that on us. That would have been a $50 million process. We don't have those reserves.
Right. So this section would be appropriate if, God forbid, something like that happened.
Yeah,
So,
fortunately, the water continues to be not have that issue, so that's worked. But yeah, that's a good example where there were probably going back about 10 years ago. So you were probably coming off, and I was coming on the Board of Finance. That was an issue
yeah.
that was debated as to what we would do if that did come down as a mandate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there could be things that come from the state that are of such magnitude that our reserves would not be able to accommodate them, and then we'd have to look for alternatives. And that's what this kind of stuff is in here for. This
And that
particular
goes-
clause is in here for.
And it further is described in the sewer taxing district, where in fact we do have a special tax, if you will, or separate taxing district, which is outlined in 5-15 and 516. Can you just comment perhaps in 17 in terms of if the sewer taxing district was to be in fact abolished? It's been around for I think since 1935, perhaps because there was a separate sewer commission outlined in the original charter. Can someone maybe make a reference to this? Is this you have the same body, or do you have a subcommittee of the Board of Finance that works?
No, this is still the independent body. It's the WPCA, the Water Pollution Control Authority. And in fact, all of these sections, 15, 16, 17, refer to the Board of Finance, but in fact, it's the WPCA. And it just happens that the members of the Board of Finance are at the same time members of the WPCA, but the WPCA is a separate organization. And so this needs to be cleaned up, this whole section here, for clarity, if nothing else.
Okay. I don't see any specific definition here of WPCA.
No, if you just were to write in, there shall be a sewer taxing district in the town. And then the next sentence says the Board of Finance. Well, it's actually WPCA shall in the annual request for appropriation. It's the sewer tax is the cost of the sewer, the improvements to it, all that occurs at the WPCA level.
Do you think this should be a separate article?
It could be because this whole article, in fact, is headlined in a Board of Finance. In fact, it's really the financing, taxing, and audit article. And to call it the Board of Finance article makes it look like you've got 20 some odd provisions or 30 some odd provisions, but most of them, only a few pertain to the Board of Finance. They all pertain to finance, taxation, and auditing.
Well, that's what the article is titled. That is.
Yeah, the article title is misleading because it gives you the impression that it's just, about the board, but it's not just the board.
The article says Board of Finance, financial procedures, taxes, and audit committee.
Yeah, it ought to be just called financial procedures, taxes, and audit.
So,
And Board of Finance. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I have a follow-up question. So recently you all had to vote, I believe, on a land use matter due to the taxing district, correct?
Yes.
So, I was thinking, because this is so specific, would you think that this should come out as its own article and because that has requirements that go above just taxing. It's also usage, etc., which is what you voted on that pipe. What are your thoughts on that?
It's one of those things. I think it could go either way. You could leave it here and make sure it's nice and clear. If you took it out, where would you put it, and what else would be included in that article?
Well, I think you could, anything related to the sewer disposal system in town, right? Public, so 15, 16, 17, right? Would obviously could come out. And then it basically, I believe that would be it from what I saw.
Yeah, but the reason it's in there is because it's a special taxing district.
Right. I understand that. And then it has a procedure for you guys to establish special taxing districts, which is an 8.
What might be other taxing districts. I don't know that
I don't
what
believe
those might be, but at least the provisions there.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the questions, Steve, you had your hand up, sorry.
Sure. I just wanted to kind of make a point that in our group, I'm in group 1, we're looking at this issue too. And the governance of the water pollution control is effectively the Board of Finance. And that's just a question mark, and I'll pose it. No question, the paying for the taxing authority should rest with the Board of Finance. But should the water pollution control have a separate governance process from the Board of Finance through some other group within the town hierarchy and government? The individual town employees certainly are the people that are responsible for the day-to-day management of this, but just raising the point that should this be a bigger issue, and I know, Kathleen, we've talked a little bit about this, that the whole Charter Review Commission should look at as to where this reporting authority should lie.
So thank you, Steve. So let's take this up as maybe a separate topic that we will again revert back to the Board of Finance, unless there are other members on the Board of Finance that want to comment on this. But we will take this up as one of the questions is, does it belong on the Board of Finance? Yes, the taxing portion, I totally understand and get. But the other procedures, if you will, the establishment, on where it's necessary to maintain, operate the public sewerage system or systems, etc. The question is, where does that authority belong, and should it be a separate item as it was back in 1935, its own commission? Should it be that process be part of, say, a utilities commission, or if there was a public works commission, something like that? There isn't now, but that should be taken up for further discussion by the Charter Revision Commission, with obvious input from the Board of Finance and others who have an interest in this matter. So we'll just table that if we can, unless you have any other comments.
I would only add that I do feel like that is an area where to have some appointed member who might have some technical expertise, engineering wise or something else, might be very beneficial to that. I mean, I understand historically it used to be as a mill rate. And that's, I think, why it sort of sat with the Board of Finance always, because we set the mill rate just like we set the for the sewer district as we set the mill rate, but now it's a fee based. And I do feel like maybe it could be a hybrid because of its role, where it's part financing of it and part to have some people who might be in addition to maybe some ad hoc positions within. Would be a way. I know it's hard to always find these sort of experts that you need for such a role. Might be very challenging in any community, but I think it might be worthwhile to have some engineers or some others who might have more specific knowledge within that area.
Okay. All right.
That's just my personal opinion.
No, we appreciate that. Okay, let's then put that aside as something that we're going to further investigate. There is a section 18, which is establishing a special tax district along this kind of the same lines, but if there's something else for any reason, we'd have to separate a special tax district. That's covered into 18.
Yeah, but 18 is there for contingencies.
Yes.
Right. So that's clearly a Board of Finance issue, whether a new taxing, I mean, who knows what it could be, but let's say it could be a water district, or it could be,
Right.
Who knows what. But you need to leave it there because it's a placeholder, but it's a contingency, but it's an important placeholder and contingency.
I agree. And interesting, the language that's stated in there, it says a majority of the electors resident in such proposed district and the owners of real property located therein require some consent, etc. So it's obviously, I think the language works for if and when that ever happened, but and so
yeah, I think the citizens are protected there because they're automatically given a say as to what happens.
Yes. Okay. 19, tax collector shall be appointed by the selectmen. Again, as Chris points out, this is kind of a hodgepodge of anything that relates to money, right? Finance, the
tax collector, not our dog.
Right. So we can skip on this, but I just say the tax collector serves at the pleasure of the selectmen. And actually, I think Group 3 might have addressed this. I see Judy Neville's on the line, but I think you actually tackled this one already. We'll come back on that.
Yeah, I mean, the way it works, right, is it's an archaic system, but, it's an old language for the way things were, but it hasn't changed anywhere in the state statutes either. So what happens is you pass a budget, gets approved by all the bodies that have to approve it, and then you have to collect it, or you collect it by issuing a tax warrant, which means that the municipality has the right to go out and demand the payment of taxes. And then that warrant is turned over to the tax collector, who has the duty to go out and collect the tax. So, I mean, it's from a functional purpose, it makes perfect sense. The word warrant and so on sounds a little old-fashioned, but that's the proper word.
Yes. And that's addressed also on 5-20. And your chairman of the Board of Finance actually has to sign off on the warrant. So
yeah, we all have to sign off on it.
You all do. Okay.
Well,
This
as many as possible need to. We always, everybody signs that tax.
Oh, and a majority thereof. Yes,
Yeah.
you're correct. Yeah. Okay. So the language holds. The payment of taxes, again, it is appropriately in this section because it is, again, the Board of Finance and their duties and responsibilities in terms of providing that taxes shall become due and payable in one or more installments. And I think that's what we do have. It's 2 installments are permitted. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. No comments or changes? Liens. And this is doesn't specifically reference who makes those liens, but I'm assuming that that's covered. Just said laid by the town of New Canaan.
Yeah, well, we just had an example last year after years and years of there were a few houses where the taxes had not been paid for a long time, and there are all kinds of procedures that protect the landowner and the taxpayer. But when those are all exhausted, eventually, then the town has the authority to sell the property in order to satisfy the taxes or give the taxpayer one last chance to pay before the property is sold. And if you'll recall, 7 or 8, maybe 6 properties last year were in that situation. I think a couple of them, the taxes were paid at the last minute. And if I remember, Marie, I can't remember exactly, but I think 1 or 2 actually went to foreclosure.
Okay.
So it happens there before it gets to the town has a lien on the property because it has the right to those taxes. But before it can collect past due taxes, there are many steps that protect the taxpayer.
I guess, Kathleen, if you're referring to who exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, that I don't. It's not us, Chris, right? We're not the ones saying, "Oh, we're going to put out a lien."
No, the town has the right to the lien. It's not the Board of Finance. It's the town of New Canaan has the
Yeah,
lien.
but maybe I don't know who exactly in the town of New Canaan.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to ask how that. We just had an example last year, so it's fresh in everybody's mind. I would imagine the selectman's office knows exactly what they did and how they did it.
Okay, so we'll go back to the selectman's office and just say, I think there's probably just something that's missing here on 522. It just says who actually imposes those liens. Which body is authorized to do that?
Yeah, that would be a good point of clarification.
Okay. Okay. It's clear on 523 that it's the tax collector who collects the fees. So that it's just the one above it is it's somewhat unclear. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Let's move on to water rates. I'm also I was trying to make it, well, we've got 15 minutes, so we'll move along, and then of course if there's anything that we've left, I think we'll get through it, but if there's anything.
Well, once you get the 26 on, it's all audit.
It comes back, and audit is just actually just a section, and then we'll come back to Board of Finance. But we'll get there. Water rates. This is the director. Now we're introducing the Director of Public Works. They will make a recommendation to the Board of Finance about establishing equitable rates from time to time. I recall when this was actually changed.
Can you scroll up a little bit?
Oh, sure. Thank you. So this is C5-25. It also makes reference to C520, where the tax collector is going to receive and collect the same. Any comments on this? Is the language correct and updated? Do we have we do have a water tax, correct? Or water rate?
I don't think there's a water tax.
Or remember when I know what side I sat on this, but remember when there was a water rates imposed on not-for-profits? You don't remember that?
No, I do
I
not,
remember sitting on
unfortunately.
the other side of the table on that one.
Can you just
And
say that again? What'd you say about the not-for-profit?
there was a not-for-profits, ABC House, churches, etc., schools, that we were not charging them for water.
Well, sewer.
Sewer, I thought.
Well, it was
No, I
measuring.
think it was water. I think it was water as well. You know,
Was.
sort of, and
It was
yeah,
measuring the
and
use of water by measuring their sewer outtake or output. Sorry about that, Bill. I didn't mean to interrupt.
right,
I
which is
think
the
it
way a
was a
lot.
sewer. I think that was the sewer tax that they were exempt from it.
Well, I know a lot of towns in Connecticut charge for water based upon the sewer use, I guess, whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
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 So I was just, I didn't want to interrupt, but since we're a little bit, Chris, does the Board of Finance ever take a look at ask the town or take a look themselves as who is exempt from taxes, whether it be water taxes or mill rate or whatever, or who's getting a break? Because I just had a personal experience where one of my daughters was trying to buy a house, and I was very surprised that the person was getting a tax break. And it was a couple of years ago, and it's behind us. It's the person sold the house, and it's now a full tax-paying entity. But who looks at that? Anybody?
I remember that there was at one point, every once in a while, there was a list of people who were exempted. They're usually people with specific financial difficulties, and it has to be approved. And I think it comes to us from the human resources, the human services department.
Okay.
Bill, just to clarify, you're talking about a different town, right?
No. I was talking about New Canaan. I mean, it was a house, and she was looking to buy a house, and the real estate agent was explaining why the taxes were so low, and I was like, that's really, So I just wondered who looks at that. That's I'm not saying it was wrong,
I think it's human services that has the recommend that can recommend that, and it gets to be voted. I haven't seen it in a while, but I do recall a few years ago there was such a list that it did come up the Board of Finance, and we had to approve it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a different subject on the water rates, but
Yeah.
I'll get asked for more clarification on that too. But I do recall that there was a list of who was not paying for this particular tax, which is a water tax. And it was primarily the not-for-profit organizations, and so that was imposed. And I think the language is correct. I just want maybe better clarification that we understand what's there and how are those taxes imposed. I don't know. It's where water is supplied, city water or town water, if you will. Okay, let's move on to 25, payment of judgments against the town. Any question on that? Comments? No? Okay. And then, as Chris mentioned, this is where audit committee was introduced. One of the reasons why audit committee was sort of put in with the topic under the title Board of Finance, taxes, financial procedures, etc., and not having any room for an additional article without shifting everything off to the right, if you will. We put audit here and it within the body of this article. And so one of the things that our group and the commission is going to consider is whether this is substantial enough that it deserves its own article. And any question or thought on that?
Well, to the extent that it's still finance related, if you were to change the title of Article 5, you could leave it here. You should move paragraphs 30 through 34 ahead of the whole section on audit, so that because those are more pertain more to
Board of Finance.
yeah, Board of Finance, town records, that sort of thing.
Right.
It's or to make it clear that it's not part of the audit discussion.
Yeah.
So that's 30 through 34.
Correct.
It's just awkward the way they're positioned.
Wait, it's in there. I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to, for the Board of Finance's review, we're considering the name commission, the audit for versus the audit committee, or potentially the audit board, just to make it consistent with the way other towns, other committees and commissions have recurring roles. Certainly the audit committee will be there forever, so it may make more sense to call it the audit commission or the audit board. If anybody has an issue with that, just wanted to see.
That makes sense to me. We're
Okay.
also going to try to define boards, commissions, and committees up front in the definition section. So this just seemed appropriate to make that modification. Okay. Going to skipping over the audit committee, and we are dealing with that separately as well. The recipients of town funds required to keep records.
Can you scroll up again?
Oh,
Sorry.
sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that, Maria. Okay. So the last 5 items here. The only comment I have is actually the last one on 34. This was when the audit committee was added here, we didn't make sure that this number C5-29, which is the penalty for exceeding appropriation, should be C5-33. So that will be modified to correctly reflect that, or correctly reflect whatever new numbers these may be if we start moving things around. But anybody have any other comments other than that small nit? On balances, what happens when we exceed appropriations? No comments? If you haven't had a chance to review it previously and want to kind of take a second set of eye look on those, please feel free to do so and then get back to us if you see any.
Yeah, they all seem appropriate,
Okay.
including the penalties. I mean, it's unlikely, but you do have to state it somewhere.
And I'll just to clarify, under system of accounting, we maintain our records in accordance with GAAP and in compliance with GASB, Government Accounting Standards Boards. That's consistent, correct? I'm looking at you, Bill, right? You.
I think we do, yes. That's the objective.
Yep, right. Okay. Okay, well, we're within time. Again, thank you, everybody. I'm gonna stop sharing and be able to look at each of you with grateful thanks for your participation, and anything that we'll bring any of these issues up to the full commission as well for further discussion. So you'll be hearing some of these comments go through our full commission as well, and the final the draft report to the town council. So plenty of time, but we don't leave it to the last minute. But if you do have some comments or changes, suggestions, please get back to us, and we're happy to listen. Okay, I am going to ask for a vote to adjourn the meeting then.
I make a vote to adjourn the meeting.
Jennifer,
second it.
second, Bill, all those in favor? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, you gonna stop the recording then, Jen?